Thank you for having me today. My name is Jennifer Clean, and I get to tell you all about my very favorite place, the Roosevelt Park Zoo. We're going to start off with an audio test here. Most of our videos in this presentation are designed to not have an audio track, but there is one late in the presentation, so we're just going to double check the audio in the room now.
Be thrilled with the magic in Minot.
We can do anything.
Be a part of the magic in Minot.
And of course, we are thrilled with all of the support that we get from our community, especially our local CVB at Visit Minot.
Be thrilled
Roosevelt Park Zoo is owned and operated by the Minot Park District, which means we get to work with these fine folks. Ron Merritt is our executive director, and then the park board is elected officials. The Minot Park District is a tax-based entity, which makes our zoo community-owned, which is very special. Being a part of the Minot Park District allows us access to a plethora of talent. We are sister entities with the horticulture department, the forestry department, and the maintenance department. They help us tremendously all year round. They're always there and just a phone call away. They get tasked with some unusual things. Our forestry department took on some rock towers just to kind of fill in some spaces within the zoo, so they get to be creative. They also made a little troll hut over in the Children's Museum underneath the goat bridge. There's a troll that lives there, and that was all the creativity of these sister entities that we get to enjoy. Our maintenance department, they are the first ones we call for everything. A light bulb is out, the heat is out in the Tiger building, water's overflowing. They help us tremendously. They put up with a lot of unusual requests, and whenever you see that logo, something good's happening. I myself represent the Greater Minot Zoological Society. It was a nonprofit organization that came together in 1970. It was an answer to the 1969 flood at the time. The Park District needed some assistance to get the zoo back on its feet, and a group of like-minded individuals in the community came together to make that happen. So the GMZS continues to exist today. They bring you all of your favorite events like Boo at the Zoo or Bacon and Brew at the Zoo. All of those fundraising activities stay within the zoo. That also includes the gift shop, and all of your membership fees come through the GMZS, and all of that money stays on the zoo's campus. Roosevelt Park Zoo is accredited by the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, which is the gold standard of animal welfare and a benchmark for zoos to reach to. What that allows us to do is really be mission focused. We get to focus on education and conservation, empathy, and making those connections with our guests. Being held to that AZA standard allows us to really focus our message in a specific way. We did achieve accreditation the last time in 2019. That is a 5-year accreditation process, so we'll be coming up again soon. And the Roosevelt Park Zoo has been accredited since 1989 consistently. So we're going to talk about some of those mission points here. First one being education. We are an education facility. We were able to add a full-time educator in 2017 thanks to a grant from the Oppen Foundation. We have more than 400 campers, more than 10,000 different students that are reached through our outreach program, which takes ambassador animals into schools. We have made a really great push on our early childhood education programs, which includes our TOTS classes. But our Zoo to You program is for adults too. It makes an excellent senior care encounter, something to mix things up, or just a service club like all of you. There are a lot of ways that we can tailor it to whatever guest that we're speaking to at that time. Of course, with 2020, we became very familiar with virtual programming. It turned out that there was a need for that anyway, and so we still do some virtual programming. We work with whoever is booking our Zoo to You programs. Mine at Public Schools CLC classes decided that they preferred that those animals were virtual. It was just easier for crowd control. And so we do a CLC program every Thursday, and that is all done by virtual. And they get to meet a different animal every time. course, a part of every education message that we take on at the zoo includes conservation. Our educator applied for a grant through the Advancing Conservation Through Empathy program, or ACE program. This allowed us to install signage throughout the zoo that included our animals' names. That was a big asset for our guests in the last 2 years, getting to know all of those animals' names. And then there's a conservation action that's incorporated in each of those signs as well. Something that you can do at home, something like bringing your reusable garbage bag or your reusable grocery bags when you go shopping, or shutting off the water when you brush your teeth, something that makes conservation tangible and easy to do. We do fundraisers that go to our Change for Change conservation fund at Roosevelt Park Zoo. We have a conservation committee that comes together to decide where those funds should be dispersed. One of our biggest fundraisers is the giraffe feeding station, which is open in the summer months. At 11 and 3, you get to feed the giraffes. That's $5 per feeding time, and then half of that goes into our conservation, our Change for Change fund, and the other half goes into savings for when we're ready to improve the giraffes' habitats as well. What you see here on your screen is one of our field conservation activities. This is in the Badlands in South Dakota. Black-footed ferrets were considered extinct twice. They have come back from the brink of extinction, and they've been reintroduced in areas like you see here in the national park. So we work with Prairie Wildlife out of Colorado, who was in charge of reintroducing that population. We work with them, go down, send volunteers or zookeepers, and make sure that that population is healthy, that reintroduced population is healthy. They do trap the black-footed ferrets. They have a tag in their ear. They check to see if that ferret has been in contact with prairie wildlife before, or if it is a wild-born black-footed ferret. And then they get them up on their vaccines. Our training program is something very special at the Roosevelt Park Zoo, something that I didn't know we did before I started at the zoo. This is a animal behavioral training program. It is all voluntary. All of the behaviors that they encourage from these animals have to do with veterinary or husbandry care. You see a lot of these animals on scales, or like these penguins here, they're just on what they call a station that can be switched out for a scale when they are needing to weigh them. Weight is an excellent way to track health. So they do monitor the weights of as many of our animals as are willing to participate. You'll also see these lollies. This is target training. So this is Shelby here. She is our African spurred tortoise. This is from a few years ago. She's grown quite a bit, and when she is full grown, she'll be more than 100 pounds. Right now, she is one of our education ambassadors, so she goes out to schools. Well, when she's 100 pounds, it's going to be difficult to get her in a car. So what we're doing is making her used to following this target. Everything is positive reinforcement. Usually it's food. Everybody has their favorite food that they get for positive reinforcement. But when Shelby is big enough that it's a struggle to get her in the car, we can trade out these stations with ramps that'll get her up into a wagon or even all the way up into the back of a car, that she can still go out to schools even when she's full grown. Enrichment is just a fancy way to say toys. Our keepers are incredibly creative. They really practice what they preach and try to reuse things as often as possible, which can even mean hanging a stick for the giraffes one day so that the giraffes can scratch themselves, and then the next day they hand that same stick off to the lions, so the lions can smell their neighbors up close and personal. So they get really creative with those things. Usually there are foods tucked inside of different things. They're different surfaces that give these animals something new to do, some way to explore their environment. All of those enrichment activities are designed to engage natural adaptations. So going back to that stick with the giraffe, In the wild, they would be reaching up into the trees and using their tongue to reach for leaves. Well, we can reenact that or recreate that for them. We have an activity board for our giraffes that have small holes just big enough for their tongues, and then Tupperwares on the back side of the board. So they have to reach into the hole to reach into the Tupperware, which would have some kind of grain or snacks for them. So it's something different for everyone, but they get really creative with it and have a lot of fun with it. Just because these videos are a whole lot of fun to watch, I'm going to let it keep playing and remind you that we take volunteers all year round. Sometimes those can be docents. Those can, you can get approved, get trained to work with some of our ambassador animals. You can take them out in the grass and interact with the kids. It can be opening up the goat encounter so that kids can come in and brush the goats or read a book to the goats, and we just need an adult that will stay there with them for that activity. Of course, there's always grounds maintenance as well. We appreciate our raggers, especially in the springtime. Our Amur Tiger River Valley habitat was completed in June of 2020. This habitat is 21,000 square feet. That is up from 1,400 square feet before. So this is an enormous improvement on their prior home. It is important to say that, you know, modern zoological practices change. Modern evolves with the time. When our original cat complex, or our traditional one, our previous one, was built in 1974, that was top of the line for cat care. What we've done here is made it species specific for those cats. Before, it was 4 areas that were all the same. You were presented with a lion and a tiger and a leopard, and those habitats were the same. Those cats seemed the same, and they're not. Tigers, our Amur tigers, are the biggest big cats in the world. They love water, so there's water features in our 3 yards. They are solitary creatures, and so there are 3 separate yards, so we could house 3 separate tigers. Right now, our Amur leopard is living with our tiger, and her new home, her new species-specific home, is under construction. Of course, we are very proud to announce that we had our first success in the last, well, the first success in 20 years with our 3 cubs, our 3 tiger cubs. So this is Victor. He's our 10-year-old male. He was matched to Zoya, who is a 4-year-old female. Zoya has kind of a special story. We're going to let this play again because it's gorgeous. Zoya was born at the Philadelphia Zoo, and she was born to a first-time mom. She was one of 5. She was the only surviving cub of that litter. So when she was 2 days old, she was pulled from her mother, and also being a part of that AZA network, Philadelphia Zoo reached out to AZA and said, we want to give her best chance. If she's raised by a cat, then she will have those cat instincts. She won't have that if she's human raised. So we wanted to give her the best chance. Well, Oklahoma City Zoo had just given birth to 3 male Sumatran tigers. Remember, this is an Amur tiger, so ours are from the Russia area. Sumatrans are from India. Lola, the mother at Oklahoma City Zoo, was doing very well with her new cubs. She was also a first-time mom. They said, let's give it a try. So they introduced Zoya, and Lola accepted her right away. She was a very successful mom. She was raised with 3 foster brothers until her 2nd birthday, which is the traditional time that our tigers find their forever homes, which will be true for our cubs as well. So at that 2-year-old mark, Zoya was matched to Roosevelt Park Zoo, matched to Victor, with the intent of breeding. And so we're very happy to announce that that was a success. The Severson Ahart African Lion Savanna was also a part of that New Habitat for a New Century capital campaign. It was our first capital campaign in our 100 years. Where I said that each cat exhibit is species specific, that is true for our African lion exhibit as well. So where tigers are solitary, lions are very much pride driven. So right now we have a pride of 2. They've been a pride of 2 for a long time. This habitat will accommodate more lionesses, so we have a true pride in the future, but these 2 have certainly earned their space, and so they are enjoying the yard with the 2 of them. The lion habitat is 16,000 square feet. Outdoor, they have 1,000 square feet in the yard. The big deal coming up here is our day room. Our African lions, of course, don't care for our winters in North Dakota. They have always been very stimulated with training and enrichment inside. That hasn't changed. That continues to be true, but our guests are now able to see them year-round as well. And that 800 square foot day room, which also has a heated floor and some hydraulic arms for enrichment, it's pretty fancy. But that allows them to get some exercise space in the winter time as well, which is very important to us. This video was taken in one of the first times that our lions were out in the yard. It was amazing to watch the very first time they were in the yard. Kyoto, our male, planted his feet, and I have a time lapse of it. It was 10 minutes that he didn't move his feet. He only moved his head. He was watching. He was patrolling. He was doing what a male lion is supposed to do. Jasira, who's on top of Pride Rock there, Jasira patrolled. She walked the perimeter of the new yard, which is exactly what a female lion is supposed to do. So like we said with the tigers, this was intended to be species specific so that a lion could be a lion. And I think that we have certainly accomplished that. This Severson Ahart African lion savanna is the centerpiece of our Africa loop that we'll be seeing some improvements as flood control comes through the area as well. Which brings us to our final phase of our big cat habitat improvements. This is Clover. She is an Amur leopard, also from that Russia-China border. Clover was born on St. Patrick's Day, is how she got her name. She is a favorite of many of our staff. Not that you should play favorites, but she has a lot of spunk to her, and her species-specific habitat is going to be a place where leopards can climb. She's currently living with our tigers. You will see in yard 1 of our tiger habitat, there's platforms. And the platforms were built for shade for our tigers. The tigers have never gone up on top of that platform, and it was the first thing she did. She wanted to be up high. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch that in her new habitat, which will repurpose the traditional cat complex building. You can still kind of see the remnants of those 4-leaf clovers around the building, but that will all become one. It's technically 5 separate yards so that we can control our, I don't know what a group of cats is called, a group of leopards, but so that we can, if we need to separate anybody, it can be closed off in 5 different yards, or it can be opened up all the way. So if we only have one cat, like we do currently, then she can have free reign of the whole place. It will feature some glass viewing areas. It'll feature some little kid peaks toward the bottom of the photo there. You see that tree trunk that kids can go inside. That'll be heated on the bottom so that it will be inviting for those leopards. She also likes our wintertime, but who doesn't like a heated floor? So she can come up to the glass and be just on the other side of the glass inside that tree with the kids. It'll be a really great experience for them. The mountains that you see in the center are a series of retaining walls so that we can put natural soil in between the rocks and grow natural grass as well.
Today we are celebrating the Minot City Band, the Kiwanis Club of Minot, and the Roosevelt Park Zoo. All 3 are 100 years old. It is really incredible to think what kind of people were making Minot come together 100 years ago.
I am Theodore Roosevelt, and I'm delighted to be at the centennial celebration of Roosevelt Park and Zoo in Minot, North Dakota. Zoos play such an important role in the preservation of the species of our planet, and I know that the Minot Zoo, the Roosevelt Zoo, is equally involved in the preservation of wildlife and a cooperative effort with zoos throughout the world.
I've worked at a lot of different zoos, and I've seen zoos across the country that don't have the kind of support that Roosevelt Park has. And the fact that Roosevelt Park is celebrating 100 years says a lot about the zoo, but also a lot about the community that supports it.
We used to come to Minot in the early 30s and have a picnic here in the park, and we always went to the zoo.
I came to North Dakota in 1940, working up through the harvest fields, and on the weekends we probably would have a day off now and then, so I came to the zoo back then at that time, and the park was nice. I thought it was well-groomed, well taken care of.
100 years is a huge milestone. It is a wonderful time to stop and really remember where we've come from and where we're going. But it's also a jump-off point. It's a spot where we get to dream. We get to dream about what we want our zoo to look like over the next 100 years. And we have a wonderful community who gets to dream with us.
There'll be a lot of collaboration among zoo staff, but we want to involve the community. Just because we think something's going to be a good idea, this is what the public wants, it may not be. So we'll look to the community to say, this is what we'd like to see. It's not just our zoo, it's Minot Zoo.
The Minot Zoo is, in my opinion, by far the best zoo between Duluth and the West Coast. And Minot has always been very generous to this park and other parks. And Minot Zoo is very impressive. Had a few setbacks with floods and that, but you got an outstanding director of parks, you got an outstanding staff here, and so it's a good place.
We had this building here that had a few birds in, a few animals at that time, in and around the building. So they really come a long way. And I thought many times that Minot's so lucky to have a good zoo.
I must say, one of the things I greatly appreciated about the celebration today is that it seemed to put first things first. It said thank you in a celebratory way to the men and women who have served this country. And even now we hear the wonderful music of the Minot City Band, and it's a day for families, a day for patriotism, a day for wildlife, and all in the wonderful magic city of Minot. And so I've just got to say, bully for Minot.
Here is the new century. Here it is, here we are, here we go. So we're going to start off with our leopard project. We'll be breaking ground on that in 2022. It should be complete in the fall, and we'll get to celebrate again for our Amur leopards. From there, we're working with the City of Minot and their enhanced flood control project that will come through the zoo. That will change the way the zoo is made up. It will change the way we experience the zoo. It's an amazing opportunity to really guide how our guests experience the zoo and the story that we want them to walk away with when they visit. The zoo itself was established April 9th, 1914. At that time, we had 24 squirrels. So it's just an incredible lesson in start with what you have and make it great.
Our next big steps really are going to be focused on where we go with the new flood mitigation project coming in. It'll impact our giraffe exhibit, our zebras, our bongo exhibit. And we want to make sure that we think ahead and really do good planning. It's an exciting time. There's always new opportunities is the way I look at it.
There's improvements that need to be made with old habitats, and now with the flood wall we could possibly change that, which will be great because we would love to add larger enclosures, more opportunities for the animals that don't have it. I mean, when you look at our lion and our tiger exhibit, it's pretty amazing. So we want exactly that same amount of space for all the other animals and those opportunities too. So it's pretty exciting, and being a part of it is even more. So. The City of Minot loves our zoo so much. They don't even have to have a part in it, and they love it. And every time you talk to somebody, they say the exact same thing. And so we're lucky to be here and just to have such a supportive community.
That's one of the reasons I was excited about coming to Minot, was not just for the zoo, but the community, because that says so much about the future, not only of the zoo, but the community itself.
I think having a centennial celebration and bringing the community together really gives our patrons ownership of the zoo. We wouldn't be here without our community, and the next 100 years is going to depend a lot on them as well.
Well, I am delighted that the vision for the second century of Roosevelt Park and Zoo includes continued improvement of the existing habitats, and in a way that's both good for the community and good for the animals and the people who work here at the zoo. And so I know that the work that will be done will continue to be done with a high regard for the quality of life for those animals that are kept here at the zoo.
There are fewer than 100 Amur leopards remaining in the wild. We are so excited to be a part of her conservation story, and we are so excited for the new century at Roosevelt Park Zoo.